Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. So, this is the part 3 of our complete DevOps project. So, in today's video, we are going to look at how to set up Docker file and Docker Compose files in order to containerize our application. So, first of all, we are going to download Docker. In this case, we are going to download Docker Desktop. So, for that, you have to come up on Google Chrome and download Docker Desktop because this will be necessary for the containerization of our application. So let's go on here and download Docker Desktop. So I'm using Apple Silicon. So if you are on Windows, you can download any of this according to your operating system. In my case, I'm using MacBook Air M2. So I will just hit install. So as you can see, our Docker is downloaded. So we are going to install it. So you have to drag and drop here. And yes, our Docker is completely installed. Now we are going to open the Docker desktop in order to see the installation. So Docker desktop is completely installed. It was already installed in my system, so there are old images in the Docker desktop. So I will delete all of them downloaded. Also, you can see in the applications down here, and here's the Docker desktop icon right here. So once our Docker desktop is downloaded, we are going to get it running in the background and open our Visual Studio Code. So we have opened project folder right here in which we were working in the last video. So our main target is to make Docker file and Docker Compose files in order to get rid of this virtual environment, because each and every time when we want to work on this project in order to get it up and running, we have to always like activate the virtual environment and then hit python app.py. So that's not a very good approach, because on larger scale application, we have to get our program to be Dockerized. So when we get our program to be Dockerized, we don't need this virtual environment anymore, because our Docker files and Docker container will get the virtual environment or get all of our dependencies inside the container with just one line of command. So for that, we will write Docker files and Docker compose files. So first of all, we will write Docker file. So first of all, we are going to import Python image for our Docker file. For this, we are going to use 3.9. After that, we have to set our working directory as app. This is a convention for DevOps projects, like setting our working directory as app. You can set up any working directory. Now we are going to copy our requirements.txt file right into our container. This is our home directory, that is this directory, and dot means it is copying in our app directory inside the container. So requirements.txt is copied. Next thing is that we have to install these requirements.txt. So for installing, we run this command pip install no cache dir -r requirements.txt. After that, when all of our dependencies are installed in our application folder, then we have to just copy all the dependencies inside our container. After that, we are going to install .env env. For this, we have to make an environment variable file right here. So we will talk about this in the later on videos. For now, you have to like write this line of code so that in future when we are shifting up to .env, other than that we can comment this out, but we are using .env in this project, so we are going to write this command right here. Now what you have to write is that you have to expose a port. So in our case, it's 5100. The port should be exactly the same as used in the app.py. So in the app.py, we are using 5100. So in the Docker file, we will be using 5100. Next, we have to run our app.py. using the Docker container. So for this, we have to say command, and then we are using Gunicon servers. So we are going to specify Gunicon here, and then we are going to say bind dash dash bind, and then towards this URL. So when our project will run, it will run on this URL. Then there is app colon app. This is a syntax. We are going to require workers equals to 4 and specify the threads working on this project equals to 2. So this is it, the Docker file for our project. Now we are going to write the Docker compose file. So for this, Docker compose dot yml. Firstly, we are going to specify the version of our Docker compose, that is version 3.8. You can specify any version, but I recommend sticking to 3.8. Now we are going to define the services. Our first service is Flask app, and then we are going to build. So building what? Building the context, and that is our Docker file is present inside the root directory, and Docker file equals to the name of the Docker file, Docker file. After that, we are going to specify the ports, that is 5100 open and binding ports. After that, env file dot env, because our environment file is named as .env file. So after that, networks, that is app networks. You can name it any network. So here's a syntax error. Forgot to mention a dash here. Yeah. Now we are going to define the networks here. So this will be binded inside here. So networks, going to copy this and we are going to paste it right here, colon, and driver to bridge. So and now run it. For your reference, I am going to delete the virtual environment that I created. Virtual environment is deleted. Now we are going to write two commands: docker compose build. What this will do is it will build the Docker files. Remember, you have to inside that directory in which our Docker compose file is located. If we are in a wrong directory, then it will not build. We always build and run the Docker compose and Docker container on the basis of this command, on the basis of Docker compose. That's why we've written Docker compose YML. So our build is completed. Now we can just write Docker compose up. Yep, so our project is up and running on this port in the Docker container. So we just hit it open and it is on Docker container. For your clarity, I can also show you. Here's our Docker desktop and here's our PyBG remover named image. So inside it we have our Flask app -1, that is this Flask app. So our application is running on the inside the Docker. We can also run it via this and close this. So we are going to test it right here, this image. All right, so remove background. So yes, our image background is removed. Now I'll download the image, and here's our background removed image. We can also see no errors in this. You can also see the logs inside the Docker desktop as well. So you can open the image and here are the logs. You can also execute the Docker container inside this built-in terminal of Docker. That's it for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and watch other videos regarding this playlist as well. And I'll see you guys next time.